Okay, Farah. Okay, so now I think everyone are here already lah. Okay, so for this week we will proceed to our chapter 7. Last week we have learned about chapter 6, which is the architecture design, right? Okay, so you have learned there are three process of architecture design. Um, Let me find again our Jamboard last time. Okay, so last week we have learned about architecture design. Okay, so during our replacement class on Monday last time, we have learned about this chapter 6. We have learned there are three activity in order to create the architecture design. And then in the system organization, we will organize the system into its subsystem. And then we have learned three model, commonly used model for for the system organizations. After that, the second process or activity in order to create architecture design is to go through the modular decompositions. So in this process, we will make each of the subsystem inside that system decompose. Okay, so there are two way of decompositions, which is the object-oriented decompositions and functions-oriented. And then after that, we have learned about the control modeling, which is the third activity of architecture design. So today, we will learn about chapter 6. Okay, so this is architecture design is the activity that you will do after requirement gathering. Okay, so after you come out with the SRS, then you need to design. So after the design, what is the next phase? Who can answer? What is the next phase after the architecture design based on SDLC? Based on the SDLC. I will ask someone lah. Russell, do you know what is the next phase after the design? Testing? No. What do you want to test when you don't have the software? Planning? Kelvin, what will we need to plan? Yes, coding or implementation. Okay, so whatever that we have designed, we need to implement it, which is we need to do the coding lah. But in this software engineering courses, we will not learn about how to code because you have learned various courses just to do the coding, right? You have learned various courses. You have learned some programming language to do the coding. Okay, so that coding phase or the implementation phase we will not cover in this chapter because it is a huge topic. There will be various courses that only to teach how to code. Am I right? You all have learned some programming language, right? In order to learn, in order to do the code. Ah, okay. So by assuming that all of you are already learned about how to code, then we already can skip the coding phases. So after coding phases, what is the next phase after the SDLC? If you all can remember. Yes, correct, Jonathan. Jonathan. Okay. So after you do the coding, so imagine that you already do your code lah. Okay. So either you are developing a web application ka, mobile application ka. It's depending on whatever code that you have learned and then you have developed whatever system that you have developed previously. Then the next phase after the implementation or the coding phase is we need to do the testing. So this is what this chapter will teach. Okay, so which is the chapter 7. We skip the implementation phase. We directly go to the software testing. Okay, so this is the objective for this chapter lah. Okay, so in this chapter, you all will learn about testing fundamentals, just the fundamentals of the testing, and then testing technique and strategy. What are the some technique and strategy that usually implemented during the testing, and then test case design and planning, testing guidelines and principle. Okay, so for the DSF student, they have last time one course just for testing, which is software testing and quality. So maybe um, I'm not sure from the RSD one, which whoever that is from RSD one and then DFT. How about DFT? Have you learned some testing previously? DFT, DFT student. One course just for testing, yes. Software testing and quality. In that course, they will learn about how to do the testing and then how to make sure the quality of the testing lah and of the software. Oh, Russell, though, no, the FT didn't learn about software testing and quality. Yeah, um, so maybe the DSF student, you will have you have learned some of the not some. Usually you have learned the some of the topic inside this testing lah. Okay, so maybe if your friends have any problem later, then you can help me to explain. Or okay. So after that we will learn testing guidelines and principle lah. Okay, so software testing fundamentals. First of all, why do we need to do the testing? Okay, so to answer these questions, we need to read the recent article. Recent article regarding some problem in software. Okay, so you all can read this one lah. It happened during August to 2020 lah. It is not just too recent lah, but it is reported on 2021, meaning this year. Okay, so you all read this first lah. Okay, done. Okay, so there's the continuous. Okay, so this is the second, the continuous of the case. Okay, so done also. Okay, so after reading this case, why do you think we need a testing? Okay, so who can answer? Why after this reading this case? Lagging ka? Ayan. Is my voice still lagging? Okay, so Noel said, yeah, still lagging ka? Okay, wait. I okay, I can see there's various answer in there while I'm managing my connection. You all can give your answer in the chat. Okay. Ah, okay. So I hope I am not lagging now because I have changed my connection to my data plan. Okay, so let me read the answer. Um, to make sure the app run perfectly, yes. Okay, to make sure the app run perfectly, and then to keep the app safe. Okay, so you mean the security lah, the data safe lah, right? The data safeness lah, right, Kelvin? And then Shark said to ensure the app well prepared. Yes. Alvin, to explore system potential security problem. Yes. Okay, so to enhance the app safety feature. Yes. Okay, so all of your answer is correct. But I like the answer from Alvin and Daniela because it is really concerning related with our case just now. This just pay reacted. Okay, so if you all read this case, it is relating to the data breach. Meaning data breach is when the information inside that system is stolen. Okay, so based on this case, a testing is really needed because we want to avoid this kind of problem, which is the data breach. Okay, so it is to enhance the application safety feature lah. Okay, and then to like Elvin said, it is to explore the system potential security problem. Okay, so if JSPE actually have run the testing correctly previously before they deployed the system, this problem may not happen. Okay, so I think this is they didn't mention how many or how much money actually lost from this problem. I mean on data. Okay, so 10 crore Indian credit card said that 10 10 crore, I'm not mistaken, it is like a million, 10 million Indian credit card holder. Okay, that is actually breached or stolen from this JSPE. Okay, so imagine if informations is used for some illegal activity. So it, but luckily they have solved this problem quickly lah. Okay, so why we need software testing is for the quality. Okay, quality of, to check the quality of design, development, and implementation, and also the quality of your testing lah. Okay, so after that, for example, the reliability of your system. Okay, so reliability, either people can really rely on your system to do the person task. There are no failure that is dangerous or costly. Okay, so because correctly, last time Starbucks also have problem with their point of sales. So it is Starbucks is on international. Yeah. Starbucks is international business, right? So they also have lost millions dollar because of that problem, their system problem. Okay, so to demonstrate the presence of error. Okay, so another why or another reason why we need to do the testing is to demonstrate the presence of error so that we can fix that error. Okay, so it is better if the error is happened during the testing rather than after the system already deployed. Okay, so um, we cannot show. I mean, you do the testing. Your purpose is not to show that the system has no error. Okay, so your purpose of to do this testing is you need to find as much as you can the error from the system. The successfulness of your testing is determined by how many errors that you can find during the testing. Okay, so when you do the testing, just set in your mind you doing the testing not to show to the people that your system has no error. No, that is wrong. So just please set in your mind that you do the testing to find as much error as you can. Okay, so that will determine your successfulness of your testing. Okay, so testing also is part of planning process. Okay, so the main goals of testing is for the validation testing. We want to see either each of the requirement from the SRS is there or is in your system already or not. So that is the validation testing. And then defect testing is to make sure that your system is error free or bugs free. Okay, so like I said just now, validation testing is to make sure that the software that you have created meets the requirement from the SRS. And then for the defect testing, it is to discover the faults or defect lah. Okay, to make sure that your system will have no error or bugs after it is deployed, before it is deployed to the customer. Okay, so when you do the testing, you will need to go through some stages. First, unit testing, module testing, subsystem testing, system testing, and acceptance testing. So unit testing is the earliest testing that you can do. Okay, so usually unit testing will be done by the programmer when they are create, yes, either their function is functioning correctly, so they will need to do unit testing. Okay, so we all will learn about all each of these stages in our next phase, huh? The next slide. Okay, so for unit testing, it is to test individual component or code or function inside your system. So usually it will be done by programmer. Okay, like I said just now, when you do your testing, of course you will need to test, right? Okay, so when you create some function like a plus b function, so for sure when you want to test either that function will return a correct result, then or yeah, if it is correct, if it is returning the correct result, of course you will need to test with some data, right? A plus b, if it is a plus b, then you may add 1 plus 2 or a plus b to test either your functions is can accept alphabet or not. Okay, so what happen if your function accepting alphabet? Okay, so it is a unit testing. Actually, if there are some framework or in Visual Studio, actually there are a unit testing. So, you can do unit testing. Um, you can create a code to test each of your functions, but you will need to you will need to learn a little bit about that lah, but it is not will not covered in this chapter lah. Okay, so in unit testing, it is also usually done by the programmer. It is to test individual component or function that is created or coded by that programmer. And then after that, um, you will test. Okay, so during the unit testing, what you will test is the condition and the options. Okay, for example, if you do a function like a plus b just now, then you may test um, some condition. Okay, like I said just now, the example I said is maybe you will add 1 plus 2, and then you may also uh, test by adding alphabet or symbol to make sure that your system behave correctly to that kind of data. Okay, so we know that additional additional addition should not process alphabet or symbol, right? So that is what you test here lah, the condition, and then the options, meaning if the A plus B cannot, then what is the option or what is the how the system should behave if it receives something like A plus B? Okay, so that is the options lah. Okay, so in the unit test, you will test this kind of test cases, condition and options. Okay, so for example, your student registrations functions, If you have a student registration functions, then you may need to test the student registration functions lah. Maybe you will add or register some students, some students with some info, and then you will check either the system can really add the information of the student, and then check either it is exists in the database or not. Okay, so this is the example of test case. Okay, so which is this condition and option. Okay, so when you do testing letter, but let me check first either okay, so this is the example of test case. Okay, so this is actually the example of how you will test your function. Okay, so just imagine that you have a one form. In that form, you have this table. Okay, so this form will be used by the tester. Okay, so for example, the purpose or objective of your test is you want your module, maybe your report module, to generate a report to list selected months cells. You want to just select some months, particular months, and then you want to see the sales data for that month. Okay, so your test data, meaning the data that you will enter to the system, is the month. Okay, so let's say you want a sales data only from June until September. So maybe so your test data is the start month and end month. And then the expected result should be the sales data from June until September lah. But for a tester, they will need to run this, and then they will see the actual result. Either it is same with the expected result or not. If the same, then okay lah. Okay. But if it is not the same, meaning the system has the problem. Okay, so your remark here may be either pass or fail lah. Okay, so if it is the same here, the actual result, same with the expected result, then this objective is passed or achieved. But if it is not the same, the actual result with the expected result, then the remark should be fail lah. Okay, so I'm sure the DSF student is familiar with this formula, right? Celine, Wong, Nathan, Jeremiah, you all familiar with this, right? Test case form. Okay, so good. You all still remember lah. Okay, so this is just the example because later we will learn about that also lah. Okay, so after that, the second stages in order to do the testing is the module testing. Okay, so what happened in the module testing is you will test a collection of dependent component. You will test a collection of function or component that is related to each other. Okay, because we want to test, what we want to test is either each of the components working well with their related components. Okay, so the things that you may test during the module test is the object class, the abstract data type, collection of procedure and functions. Okay, so if your functions is related to another functions, then you need to test that collection of functions lah. Okay, so after that we will do subsystem testing. So in this, we will test collection of modules. If previously you are testing collection of components, but in the subsystem testing, you will test a collection of modules. Okay. A modules may be consisting more than one functions. Okay, so modules here, a modules maybe consists of more than one functions that related to each other. So that is what we call the modules. So in the system, in the subsystem testings, we will test a collection of modules, meaning more than one modules. Okay, so how each of that modules will work to each other or will behave when they are working together. Okay, so after that system testing lah. So I think you all can um, assume lah what we will test in this. Who can guess? During the system testing, what you will need to test? If the module testing, you will test more than one functions that related to each other, functions or component. So in the subsystems testing, you will test collection of modules. Okay, so in the system testing, you will test. Ah, I think Jonathan have the right answer. Integration of the subsystem. Okay, so remember under system there will be a subsystem. Under subsystem there will be a modules. Under the modules there will be a collection of functions. Oh, wait guys. Pause. There's some delivery, so I will need to ask somebody to get it first. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Okay, so remember under system you will have a different subsystem. Under subsystem you will have different modules. Under each of the modules you will have a collection of functions that is related to each other. So it is like just a top down or bottom up. Okay, so if previously from the unit testing until the system testing, it is like bottom up. We start from the smallest, we test each of the smallest unit first, and then after that until the largest unit. Okay, so we proceed. In the system testing, you will test okay, so integration of the subsystem. Really, it is really similar with what Jonathan answered lah. Did you opening the slide, Jonathan, or it is from your brain, from your head? Oh no! Wow. Yeah. Okay, so it is from your opinion lah, right? Okay, so it is the same with the slide. Okay, so system testing is the integration of the subsystem. Okay, so we need to see either the subsystems that consisting of a collection of modules, and then each of the modules is consisting of the functions. Either all of them is working well or not. Okay, so Okay, so what you will do during the system testing is you will find the discrepancies between system and its original objective, current specification, and system documentation. So remember, during the system testing, you are already testing the whole system. Okay, so that's why you need to check. That's why in this testing you need to check either it meets its original objective. Original objective is either it is really fulfilling the requirement from the SRS, and then either it is really fulfilling the current specifications, and then either it is matched with whatever system documentation that already generated previously, created previously. So the primary concern for this system testing is either each of the individual modules is compatible to each other or not. After we do the system testing, then we do the acceptance testing. Acceptance testing is the final stage of testing, and it is usually involving user or the end user of the system. So that's why it is also called as user acceptance testing, UAT, user acceptance testing or alpha testing. Okay, so in this acceptance testing, you will include the real user of the system to test your system. Either it is fulfilling whatever requirement from the user or not. Okay, so, mm. okay, so that is the acceptance testing is the alpha testing or UAT. So now we proceed to the beta testing. Okay, so beta testing is happen due after the alpha testing, after the UAT. Okay, so it will be done after the UAT but before marketed. Before marketed meaning before you deploy the system to the client server or before you market it lah. If you want to sell it, uh, maybe in Google Play or you sell it like what Microsoft sell their Microsoft Office kan. So before you sell it to the market, then you need to do the beta testing. So beta testing will be done after the alpha testing or UAT. So this beta testing usually will be done by potential customer. So usually if your software, if you want to test something from the internet, sometimes the developer will make it free first so that they are a real user will download it and use it, and then they will give a feedback about the system to the developer. So that is the beta testing. So it usually will be tested by a potential customer. Okay, so we have cover this all of this generally lah. What is unit testing, module testing, subsystem testing, and system testing. Okay, so when you do a testing, you will need a test data. Okay, so you will need a test data. So there are two different sources of test data that you can get, which is first live data or artificial data. The live data is the real data lah. Artificial data is usually people call it as a dummy data or data that is created based on what you want to apalah, dummy data meaning the data that you make it yourself. Kita buat the data to test the system. Okay, so live data is the real data, meaning the real data that is entered by the real customer. So where to get the data? Okay, so to get a live data or the real data, who can guess before we proceed? How do you get the live data? Who can guess? Previous system? Yes, can be. Whatever system or data that is previously used. Yes, can. Ada answer? Another answer? Yeah, beta tester. Yes. Sometimes volunteer. Yes. Yes, correct. So Kelvin said beta tester. Yes, like what we just learned previously for the after the UAT, you will market it before you market your software. Then you will do the beta tester, the beta testing, right? So in the beta testing, you will get the real data from beta tester. Okay, so volunteer, yes, Russell. So maybe we will ask some volunteer to key in data to our system. Okay, so beside that, we also can get live data from extracted from DB. So this is, I think my is my voice lagging because I just see that I am losing my connection just now. Is my voice clear now? So my voice is it clear now? Okay lah, so I can proceed lah kan. Okay, so we also can get live data from the data from the normal activity. So maybe we will ask uh, we will make our system available for maybe some period of time just to get a real data from the user, and then after that we close it again. Okay, so for further or for so after so we can do a better testing later. Okay, so after that, okay, so but live data is usually difficult to get because live data sometimes you will need a real user to key in the data. So sometimes real user will hard to cooperate, especially when they have no benefit from it. Okay, so I can just imagine how hard all of the master student, PhD student to get their real data because sometimes their data is very hard to be obtained. Sometimes their data really need an input from a very busy person. Okay, so I have received some email from a student or research student to get some data, but usually their data will be a lot. So for me, because sometimes we are so busy, and then we I only will do it when I really have time. So I think I have uh, the heads up how hard the research or anybody that need to use the live data to proceed with their research or something, because live data is usually memang hard to get. I have heard from some of the research friends that there sometimes until they need to give like iPhone kah? iPhone. To get they offer iPhone. Okay, so for those who who participate in the survey to get the data lah, but not every participant will get the iPhone lah, gila. But they will do like some competition for those who answer that question. Then there will be, they can be participate in some like apa, cabutan bertuah. I don't know the, I forgot the terms in English. Cabutan bertuah, what is that called in English? Cabutan bertuah. Okay. Lah, lucky draw, yes. So yeah, I heard from research friends that they until may do or conduct some lucky draw competition. So but and then the prize, the main prize is iPhone. Okay, so they are using their own money lagi oh. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so like what Kelvin say, people always have negative thought about something, about a collection of data like that. Okay, so they didn't believe you. Okay, so they think that it is fact. So that's why, not only because it didn't benefit them, but also they think that they will lose something when they participate or when they give real data to you, because it is sometimes when you need real data, then you will need their information, their personal information. So they're afraid that their personal information will be used for something illegal activity. So even though you say that you are a research student, you will make sure their data is protected, they still have the negative thought. Okay, so that is why it is difficult to get. Okay, the second type of test data we can get from artificial data. Okay, so this artificial data generated to test all combination of format and values. Okay, so data gathering generating utility program. Okay, generated by person other than developer. Okay, so this artificial data usually will be created by maybe it is a person that other than the developer. Usually developer can hire some data entry part-timer just to get the dummy data. Okay, so this is actually what we can call as the dummy data lah. Have you all heard about dummy data? Have you ever heard about the dummy data? Okay lah. So you all familiar with the terms lah, right? Okay, so sometimes the dummy data also can be obtained from data generating utility program. So maybe there are some utility program that is created by the developer just to create data. Okay, so because there are some program that can create random data based on some algorithm lah, especially the artificial intelligence system. They can generate any other data based on some existing data. Okay, so that is what it means by data generating utility program. Okay, so the artificial data is generated because we want to test the combination of all format and values that is needed by our system lah. Okay, so test library, we proceed to the test library. Okay, so test library is a library. Okay, so it is like a library that containing all of the test data. So it is usually used by thoroughly test program. Okay, so previously when when I was doing my master, so my master was in natural language processing. Okay, so natural language processing. Okay, so I need a set of data. Okay, so a set of data, and then we do you know how we can get the data? Me and my friend, because my research is about natural language processing for Malay language, and then we want to process the Malay language that is mixed with any other language. Okay, so and we want to make the informations retrieval easier by even though they are retrieving the information from that kind of data, the data that is mixed with any other language, with short forms, with jargon data, with a neologism. Neologism is a newly coined word or newly generated word. It is not exist in any database or dictionary, but actually widely used. So that is what it calls like a neologism. So we want to make the information retrieval easy, even though they are facing this kind of information or text. So to do that, I will need a lot of I will need a data which is actually a dictionary. Okay, so to get the dictionary, Malay dictionary, okay, so we take the Kamus Dewan Bahasa and Pustaka. If you know that actually that dictionary is about this stick, okay, about this stick. It is in red. Sometimes it is in blue cover and red cover. It is depending on the version. Okay, so I have that, we have that, and then only the two of us working on keying in all of the informations inside a text file. Okay, so we use the text file as the test library because it is storing all of our data. So we do that for the Malay dictionary. So for the English dictionary, we don't have much problem because it is available online. Some of because English language is widely used, right? So the dictionary about it is widely available. So we don't need to do that for English, but we need to do that for Malay. So what we did is we typed all of the dictionary, all of the words inside the dictionary, but only the root word lah. Only choose the root word, and then we store it in a text file, and then we make it as our test library. Okay, so it doesn't matter how you store all of the test data, but as long as it is a collection of data, either you store it in Excel ka, text file ka, in database ka, or Access ka, so it doesn't matter. As long as it is containing all of the test data, then it can be considered as a test library. Okay. Okay, so we proceed. So understand what is the test library? Okay. So, can I have a raised hand? Can just find online what the Malay word, Kelvin, the Malay word, the root word, test library. During that time, it is not available. I am not sure if now it is available. Actually, we have a Dewan Bahasa and Pustaka, but that one we cannot easily get all of their database. It is not easy to get. There will be a lot of procedure, of course. So we didn't want to go through that problem, so we use it. We type it ourselves lah. Plus, our test data, it is only containing the root word. And then there are some of the things that we change lah based on our research. So that's why, yeah, that's a lot of to type. But I am, it is better lah rather than you are getting real data from real user, because you know, right? It is better if you type it yourself, because it is only depending on yourself and your friends lah. But if you are depending on other person's data, you will need to do lucky draw lah, apalah, okay? So I'm quite lucky lah last time because just need to write that that tick of the apa dictionary. Okay, so yeah, but during that time it was 2013. So during that time, the Malay word library is not easy to get. For English, yes, because the research in English language is very wide, and then it is available internationally, so it is easy to get lah. Okay, so we proceed since you all can understand this library, it is easy lah to understand, right? Okay, so we proceed to the testing technique and strategy. But we will have a 5 minutes break lah, because it is already 1 hour lecture. So we meet again at 3:38. Okay, 5 minutes. Okay, so we proceed to the testing technique and strategy. Okay, so as we have learned previously, there are one, two, three, four, five stages in testing process, where the smallest unit you need to test is your unit test or you need to test your functions. So a collection of functions that related to each other will generate a module. So after that, you do the module testing after to test how each of the unit testing or the smallest unit, which is the functions, work to each other in one module. So that is how you do the module testing. After that, if you have more than one modules in your system, and then you group the related module, okay, related module, and then you test each of that modules, either they are working perfectly. Okay, so that is what you do in subsystem testing, meaning you test in the subsystem testing, you test each of the modules. Okay, either they are working perfectly. So during the system testing, you will have different subsystem, and then we want to test either it is working correctly to each other. Then it is what happened in system testing. So in system testing, you will need to make sure that it is meeting with the objective, with the SRS, and with another documentations that actually created previously in the previous stage. So that is what happened in system testing. And then the acceptance testing or UAT testing is acceptance testing or alpha testing you do with the real user. Okay, so after that, you know lah, right? We have a beta testing after that before the system will be marketed, enter the market. Okay, so testing technique. Okay, so as we discussed earlier, actually there are two fundamental testing activity. Okay, so among all of this testing kan, this testing will be categorized into two fundamental testing, which is component testing or unit testing and system testing. Okay, so based on these stages in testing, we come out with two fundamental testing activity, which is component testing and unit testing. So the component testing and unit testing, it is based on understanding on how the component should operate and testing well. And testing will perform the software, and then it is will be performed by the software developer. Okay, so all of these unit testing, module testing, system testing, subsystem testing and system testing will be will be categorized under this component testing and unit testing because it is done by software developer. Okay, so it is done by the software developer because only software developer can know how each of the component modules or subsystem inside the system should behave or should interact to each other. So it is under component testing or unit testing. The large name of it, a component testing lah. And then after that, the second fundamental testing activity are system testing. But system testing, it is involved two phase, which is integration testing and release testing. Okay, so the system testing will be test, meaning it is after the whole system, after the component testing done. Okay, so we will need to do the system testing. So after the whole system already developed, then system testing should take place, and then it involves two phases, which is integration testing and release testing. and release testing. Okay, so we test it based on the written system specification. And testing will perform by independent testing team. Okay, so usually when you are in small company, then usually the testing will also be done by the same programmer lah. But it is not really encouraged. So a testing team should be, it is better if the testing team is someone that is different from the programmer. Okay, so why? We will learn later. Okay, so why do you think? Why the testing team should be independent from the programming team or developer team? Why the tester should be different from the one that developed that system? So who can answer? How about Lim? Why do you think, Lim? Why do you think? Because the developer headache already. Okay, so wait, I saw that somebody has raised the hand. Siapa tu, ah? Jeremiah. Yes, Jeremiah. Answer what again? Ah, why a testing team should be different from the developer team? Why the tester should be different from the one who developed that system? Bias. Yes. Kelvin, yes. No help because of the developer headache already. That is can be accepted. It is can be accepted lah, but the most accurate one is because of the bias. Because if you are different from the developer team, yeah, if you are different from the developer team, usually the tester will have different view. You have different view, and then more error can be found. Okay, because they are thinking from different view from the developer. The developer is someone that already meet the code every day. He already know how the system works. When he click this, he already know what will happen. He already know what will happen in the background. So because of he already have all of that info, so when he will do the testing, yes, there will be a bias, because usually he will only he his mind is only limited to because he already know how the system works, right? So he will test based on how the system works lah. But for someone who didn't involve with the development, then they don't know anything about what happened in the background. They don't know how the system should behave. So they may have a different way of using that system. So a different way of using that system may create a new scenario, and then the new scenario that is never done by the developer previously may cause error. So that's why a tester that is independent from the developer can find more error. Okay, so it is because of the bias lah. Okay, correct, Kelvin. Okay, so we proceed. Okay, so during the testing, we can do two technique, which is sorry, for the system testing, it involves two phases, right? Integration testing and release testing. Okay, so for the integration testing, we have a technique. We have about one, top down and one is bottom up. I think there are three testing technique in order to do the integration testing. Integration testing is the testing when you test the integration between among each of the subsystem or the component inside the system. Okay, so in order to test the integration of each of the component inside the system, we have several techniques. The first is top-down testing, where you do the system testing first, meaning you start with the completely developed system first. Okay, so meaning to say that you do the system testing first. After that, you do the subsystem testing first, second. And then the third, you will do the module testing. And then after that, you will do the unit testing. Okay, so that means it is top down. From the big one, becomes smaller. Okay. Okay, so it starts from the upper module and works downward. Okay, so these are the this is how the top-down testing happen. Meaning you test the level 1 first. Level 1 here is your whole system. So let's say your system is a student portal system. So you test all of the system. Maybe randomly you test the system as a whole. After that, in your student portal system, you may have different function. Maybe there are a function to register student here, and then there are functions to register a course here, and then here maybe leave applications. Okay, so after that you will test. After you test the system as a whole, you test individual the level 2 system or subsystem under your system. Okay, so after that, you will do the testing maybe inside the course registration. There will be another smaller function here and then smaller function here. Okay, so this is how the top-down testing technique should be done, meaning you from the top until the bottom, from the largest until the smallest unit of the system. It need to be tested in sequence. Okay, that sequence is from the large to the small unit. Okay, so that is the first technique when you do the integration testing. So the second technique when you do the integration testing, because you want to test each of the component, either they are working perfectly, right? Okay, so the second technique is bottom up testing, which is it is opposite with the top down lah. Okay, so from the name you also can guess lah what happened kan. Okay, so it is system testing and then start from fundamental modules and work upward. Meaning here it is start from the smallest unit first lah. Meaning you need to start with the unit testing, after that module testing, after that subsystem testing, after that system testing. Okay, so here okay, so bottom up testing, meaning we test the unit test, meaning we test this unit first, smaller function first, second, and then this unit first, and then after that we combine all of them because they are related to each other to do this module. Let's say this is a module. Okay, so after that for the module second module, you have this unit function, or this is another function, and then this are working together to produce this module. Okay, so after that, you go to the next function. Okay, so these three functions are working together to produce module 2. Okay, so each after that, after all of this module tested, and then it is working perfectly, after that, we test each of this module again. I mean, previously, after we have tested either these unit functions or unit testing working perfectly, and then it can meaning the module is okay lah. Okay, so after we have tested the module is okay or not, okay, so we combine all of this module, then we test it as a whole. Okay, so you all can understand bahkan bottom up and top down testing. Who don't understand? Understand. Okay lah. Okay. So if you don't understand, just ask lah. This is, I think this is easy. Okay, so after that, the third technique is regression. This is a system testing, meaning you test the system. It is um yeah, system testing meaning there are two types of fundamental activity just now, right? The component testing and then the system testing. So meaning regression testing is under system testing. Okay, so this regression testing, it is a technique where you rerun the test for previous increment when new increment is integrated. Okay, so it is expensive because you need to rerun the test over and over again. You have done the test previously, but because of there are new increment or there are new module added to that system, then you need to rerun the the test for the previous testing, because to make sure that the new increment doesn't produce new error to the existing module. Can understand kan? Regression testing kan, let's say you have tested this and then you have tested this last week, and then this week new module is completed. Okay, so this level is completed. Okay, so whatever you do last week, the testing that you have done last week, you need to rerun again this week, just because the new module is added. Because it is to make sure that the new model didn't produce new error from didn't produce the new error to the existing module that is working perfectly previously. Okay, so that is the regression testing. Can understand kan? I want to ask Lim. How about you, Lim? And Shak and Wong? Because I can see the student that always respond and then who is diam silence, maybe tertidur sudah dia. Kan? Okay, so what do you understand about regression testing, Lim? What do you understand about regression testing? And I want also ask Shak. Maybe Shak. While we are waiting for Lim, we ask Shak. It is already here. You all can see that it is already here. But I want to ask your understanding. What is the regression testing? Shak and siapa lagi ya? Zisheng Wong. Lim, Shak, and Zisheng Wong. What do you understand about regression testing? How about Shak? I have seen the answer from Lim and Wang. How about Shak? Shak, where are you, Shak? Are you here? Okay. Yes, Shak. What do you understand about regression testing? Or you don't understand? Okay, so if you don't know, Shak, so when you are reading answer from Lim and Wang, Zisheng Wang, which answer do you think is correct? You can read the answer from our chat. Okay, Shak said Wong. Okay, yes. So you agree with Wong lah, right? Okay, so yeah. Okay, so the answer among between Lim and Wong, the accurate answer is from Wong lah. Okay, so Lim, what your answer is actually only explaining what is the integration testing, but it didn't explain what is the regression testing. So regression testing is actually you do the testing to make sure that the system still run as the previous testing, meaning to say that you have already done the testing. For example, like I said just now, if we have these functions, this module inside our system. So last week we have done testing and it is pass or it is a successful for module 2.1 and module 2.2. And then this week the module 2.3 just finished or completed by the developer. And then after that, um, to make sure that this new module didn't produce new error on that previously existing module, then we do the regression testing. Regression testing meaning to say that the same testing we do last week for these two module, we run it again. The same testing with the same data. Okay? So that is what happened in regression testing. Okay, Lip? Okay. Thank you. Okay, so if you all remember just now, system testing, it consists of two phases, which is integration testing and release testing. So integration testing, we have three techniques: top bottom technique, the second is bottom up technique, the third technique is regression testing. So it is the techniques for integration testing. So after integration testing, we will need to do release testing. Okay, so in order to do release testing, we have also few technique in order to do the release testing, which is functional or black box testing. Okay, so the first technique to do the release testing is black box testing. So this black box testing is still under system testing, and then it will have input and output. Okay, so it will have input and output. So in here, release testing will be done for the whole system. The system, meaning the whole system. You, in this phase, you no more testing. You didn't test how each of the module inside that system works to each other. Okay, so because you have done that in the integrations testing. So what we do now is we test the whole system, the whole system. So um, when we test the whole system, there will be required input and output. Okay, so you doesn't care how many modules, how many sub modules inside that system, as long as when you input the correct parameter or the correct input or the correct data, and then it output the the expected output or expected behavior, then it is okay. So this is a black box testing. It means that you don't know anything inside this. You don't know what the code, you don't know what is the modules, you don't know what is uh, functions inside that. You don't know what design, object oriented, functional oriented, so you don't know that. You only, all you know is that there's input and then there's an output. Okay, so another technique which is actually can be also implemented either during the release testing or integration testing is white box testing. So white box testing is the testing that is opposite with the black box. If the black box, you don't know whatever code inside your system, but for the white box testing, it is to test the code inside the system. Okay, you will need to check and analyze the code and structure inside that system. Okay, so you really need to know, or you really need to have a knowledge in coding when you do the white box testing. Because why? You will need to read each line of the code. Either it is correctly following the algorithm or following the design that you have designed previously or not. Okay. Okay. So beside the technique that we have learned previously, there's also one testing technique that we called as performance or stress test. Okay, so this testing or this technique, we will test the system, either we will test the performance of the system, Either it can works beyond the limits, or it can works over in I mean within the overload situations. Okay, so for example, if you are testing, if you have developed online system, then you will test either your system can receive more than 500 user at the same times or not. So that is the example of performance or stress test. Okay, so so this is the example lah for example in the banking system. To test the performance, then you will need all tellers sign in this terminal. Okay, so you will need uh, it doesn't matter how many terminal that the system or the bank have. Okay, for example, if the bank have a lot of ATM machine all over the Sabah lah, Sabah only lah. If Malaysia is it is too much lah. Okay, for example, Maybank have a lot of ATM machine at the same time. At in Sabah lah. Okay, so there will be ATM in every district, and then if you want to test it, you will test to use each of the ATM branch to sign in to withdraw the money at the same time. Okay, so it is to test either the system is strong enough to receive a lot of access at the one time. Okay, so okay, so for your component or unit testing, there will be a technique also to do the testing for your component unit and testing. Okay, so maybe you already confused already, so we need to open our Jamboard because there's a lot of testing already. Okay, so I create the Jamboard first. So we start with fundamental fundamental testing. Okay. So fundamental testing, it is divided by two. One is component testing, which is the one that we are learning now. And then the previous one is what? All the integration and release testing, it is under what? Who knows? I will ask Farrell lah. Farrell. Under the fundamental testing, there are two, which is one is component testing and the second is okay. So can you please use the Jamboard? You create one sticky note. Hmm. Okay, so yes. system testing and component testing. So for fast apa? This is eraser pen. Okay, so fundamental testing is divided into two testing, which is component testing, system testing. Under system testing, I will create it. Under system testing, there will be two activity, which is first integration testing, and then the second is the release testing. So this is two activity when you do the system testing. The first one should be the integration. After that, the release testing. So system testing will be divided by two activity. Okay, so under integration testing, there are three technique. Okay, so I want Ivan, Russell, and Jeremiah to write what are the technique that can be done to test the integration testing. There are three. Ivan, Russell, Jeremiah. Technique for the integration technique testing. Hmm. There are two regression testing. Jangan berebut. Yes. Okay, yes. Okay, correct. Okay, so yes, correct. There are three technique under integration testing. And then for the release testing, there will be two. Two, if I am not mistaken. Wait, down. No, okay, yes, there are two. For the release testing, there are two technique. Okay, so I will ask Noel and Wong, Nyap Hao Wong. What are the technique to do? What are the technique that we can do in order to do release testing? Hmm. Noel and Wong. Okay, no, okay. Okay, yes, correct. Okay, so actually, for white box testing, we can also implement this technique to create to test the integration testing. Okay, so that's why it is here. Okay, so after that, So remember, white box testing also can be implemented or can be applied when you want to do integration testing and release testing. Both of these testing can implement white box testing technique. Mm, after that, hmm. Okay, so um, we have learned about performance test. This performance test is a technique to test the performance of the whole system. So it is actually can be packed under release testing. So we can add another here, which is performance testing. Okay. So performance testing is here. Okay. So during the component testing, so now we will learn about what are the technique then that can be implemented under the component testing, or you need component or you need. So I hope you all remember about whatever the technique and the type of testing that we have learned in under the system testing. So now we proceed to the component testing. So we have 10 minutes about for the component testing. Okay, so mm, so the technique to do the component testing, we also have several technique, which is individual. I mean the to test the individual function or method in an object. What we can do is the simplest testing or different input parameter testing, and um, this technique is used to design the test. Okay, so the technique that we can do under the component or unit testing is uh, we test the individual function or method in an object. Okay, so meaning this is the simplest technique, meaning you just test the function or the individual method or function inside your system with different input parameter. Okay, so the different input parameter will be used to design the test case later. The test case or the when you do the black box testing, you will need the type of input, right? So whatever different input parameter that you have tested for your individual method or function inside your system will also can be used to design the type of parameter that you will input during the system testing letter or the black box testing letter. Okay, so the first technique is to test the individual function or method in an object. The second is you test the object class. Okay, so if you remember when you code a class or an object, so each of the object will have attribute, right? Okay, so Yeah, system testing. Okay, so you remember, for each of the class, you all have learned about programming, right? Okay, so in each of the class, you will have attribute. Okay, so each of the attribute, you will need to test to set and get. Have you learned all about set and get? Meaning, for example, for the student class or student class, you will have some attribute inside it. The example of the attribute is the student name, student ID, and then each of the attribute will have a method for it. Okay, so the method for each of that attribute, for example, get the name, set the name. Have you learned about that previously? Get and set. How about the FT student? Noel, yes. You have learned that during the first year, kan, Noel? No, this time, huh? Okay, so how about the FT student? Have you learned about that previously? To set and get each of the attribute inside a class? Rastella, I asked, because the FT, right? Have you learned about the setter and getter? Hmm. Okay, so the SF, I will ask Wong. Have you learned about the setter, getter? Uh, each of the class will have its own attribute, will have its own method. Nyep Hao Wong lah, I asked Nyep Hao Wong. Have you learned previously during the coding? Hmm. Okay, so what I want to say is when you do the component or unit testing, you will need to have a knowledge in coding. Okay, a knowledge in coding because you will need to test how each of the component inside the system works with each other. Okay, so in order to test them, either they are working well, you need to know how each of the code works. Okay, so that's why to do this code, this testing, you will need knowledge in object class, object oriented. Okay, so yeah, so during the second technique for the component and unit testing is you test each of the class or object inside your code because each of the class and object will have its own attribute and then it will have its own method which is get and set. Okay, so you what you need to test is you will need to test each of the get and set. Set meaning you set something to that class, and then a get meaning you able to view whatever that you set previously. Okay, so that is the technique in the second technique in order to check the each of the component or unit inside your system. Okay, so you also will need to test the operations or function inside of the class or the function that use that class. And then the stats. The stat is the stat is the condition of the object when, for example, when it runs some operation, what happened to the status. For example, when the student already register for that course, and then there will be something happen to the status of the student. So that is how you test the stat. Okay, so the condition of the object. Okay, so after that, the third technique in order to test the component or unit testing is the composite component. So in this testing, you will need to test the component interface. Okay, so meaning you will need to see uh, how each of the interface will interact to each other. Okay, so meaning to say that the flow of the interface after you do this, it go to which module. Okay, so the flow of the system lah. That is what it means by component interface or interaction between parts. Okay, so after that, like it is already 4:29. So I think we can stop here. We stop at the third testing technique for component unit. Okay, so we update our Jamboard first. Okay, so who remember we have learned 3 techniques just now. Okay, I will ask student lah. Too much, so much testing, but no security testing. Later. Sabar, sabar. We haven't finished this chapter, Kelvin. Okay, so I will ask 3 students. Um, Daniel, Elvin, Celine, to answer this the technique under component or unit testing. After that, we can dismiss our class. Okay, so I will, like I said just now, Daniel, Elvin, and Celine. Yes, Daniel, Elvin, and Celine, please answer the 3 technique under the component and unit testing. Okay, yes, correct. The first is individual functions or method. And then the second is okay, so composite function, a component is the third. What is the second? Okay, so there's one left for the second technique. Daniel, yes, already. Oh, Daniel also. Both are Daniel. Yes. Okay, so correct. So we have learned the testing. What we have learned today is all of this. Okay, so as a summary, fundamental testing, actually there are 5 testing, right? If you remember, unit testing, module testing, subsystem testing, um, system testing, and lastly, acceptance testing or alpha testing. So that 5, we uh, we divide them to 2 fundamental testing. Okay, we categorize them to two fundamental testing, which is system testing and component testing. So under system testing, there will be two activity. Meaning, in order to do or to test the whole system, the first you need to do is integration testing first. After that, after this finish integration testing, baru you will need to do the release testing. So, in order to do the integration testing, you can either choose these four technique in order to do the integration testing. First, bottom up, second, top down, or third is regression testing, and then you can also do white box testing in order to test the integration among each of the module inside the system. So after you are sure that each of the system or component inside that system is working perfectly, then we can proceed to the release testing. So in order to test the whole system after we make sure that each of the component is working perfectly, so we can do the release testing. So in order to do the release testing, we can have or we can apply either one of these technique. You can do all lah if you want, but you can choose lah either, but performance testing is a must lah. But you can choose either black box or white box, and then after that, after you do either black box or a white box, then you must do the performance testing. Okay, so after that, we have learned about the technique that you can do or implement when you are testing each of the component inside your system. Okay, so by using these three technique, individual, object, or composite component. Okay, so can understand, right? Okay, so for the security testing, Kelvin, we will discuss that later. Huh? Okay, so if you don't have any questions, I will have questions. All of you can understand this testing lah, right? By writing this mind map, all of you can understand lah, right? Please give me raise hand if you understand. Okay, so thank you everyone. Okay, so if you all of you understand, then we can proceed with the next lesson next week, and then we can dismiss our class now. Okay, bye. Okay, bye.